Hey y'all, it's another Wellness Wednesday. So first of all, I'm battling a head cold. It's been kind of going around our family for a little while. So I sound a whole lot more nasal than usual, and I feel pretty good, but this is all just still kind of rattling around in my head. So forgive the way I sound. Number two, I have decided that with this year's Wellness Wednesday videos, I am going to be focusing more on those best practices that really led to me having a successful venture on Trim Healthy Mama whenever I first started and then shifted over to keto. I feel like I always have to say that because I only Trim Healthy Mama for like 3 weeks before shifting over to keto and then going keto for a long time before we got pregnant with Lauren. And then I came back around to Trim Healthy Mama towards the end of my pregnancy when I could finally hold food down. So I always feel like I have to throw that in there just for the sake of transparency. So last week I talked about the fact that I was successful with Trim Healthy Mama because I was almost always getting my greens in first. And that I did this week. I went through and 4 out of the 7 days I had eggs with fried eggs and fried spinach. And on the other 3 mornings one day I had a bowl of steel cut oats and a trimmy. My protein was the collagen in that trimmy with that oatmeal. And then another morning I had just like a breakfast burrito that didn't have any greens to it. I could have easily added some spinach or some spring mix to it or some cabbage even, but I didn't. And then the last one that was not starting with greens first, I wound up eating that Peanut Lovers Trimtastic cake from the Trim Healthy Table cookbook. I had not made that one yet, and I went through and got a wild hair and decided to make that one afternoon. And the next morning I thought, we're Trim Healthy Mamas. We can have cake for breakfast and it's okay. So I felt like 1 out of 7 days having cake for breakfast was not the end of my world. On those days that I had greens first thing in the morning, like as my breakfast meal, I wound up doing so much better throughout the day, like having actual like big salads for lunch instead of just like sort of throwing a cup of greens on my plate just to say that they were there, or doing some of the sausage cabbage skillet type thing and huge piles of cabbage that I fried up with like some chicken sausage. So I was a lot more intentional with getting more greens when I started my day with greens. And on those days that I didn't start with greens, it was more of a struggle for my brain to say, yes, I will choose to have greens right now with this meal. So that's a testament to always have your greens first. So the point that I wanted to bring today is actually about timing. Before I had started on Trim Healthy Mama, I was a grazer. Always a grazer. If there was a package of food available, I would probably be eating on it, and I wouldn't be able to stop eating on it until it was gone. Prime example, if I opened up a package of Oreos, or if there were a package of Oreos opened in the house, I would find it necessary to make sure to eat the entire length of one of those rows before I could justify putting it away. It's like my brain wouldn't let me relax until that entire row was clear. Like leaving 2 or 4 or 8 in the row was not okay. So I've always had an extremist personality. I know I've mentioned that probably 8,000 times, but that's the reality for me. So I have an extremist personality, and I would graze all day long. It was not something that was good for me, but it was like, well, I'm in the kitchen and I'm cooking something for so-and-so, or I'm in the kitchen making a snack for the girls and I'll have a little nibble of it now, and oh, you know what, I should probably just go ahead and finish that thing off since there's no sense in saving it and there's no sense in throwing food away, so I might as well just eat the thing. So I would eat entirely too many calories for my body. And whenever I first started the Trim Healthy Mama way, Pearl and Serene were very adamant about eating every 3 to 4 hours. So for me, going from grazing like every 30 to 90 minutes, trying to stretch it out to 3 hours was a little bit difficult, but it forced me to be so much more mindful. I've never been a calorie counter. I've never been a clock watcher when it comes to food. And yet, like, shifting this, I was so determined to get myself healthy. And one of the things that I needed to do was pay attention to what was going into my face and when that was going into my face. So I started stretching out my food times to every 3 hours. And as I got more comfortable and confident in staying in that 3 hour range, from the last bite to the first bite, there's 3 hours there. Not like, oh, I started my meal at 9 a.m., I can start eating at like noon. No, you need to pay attention to when's the last time you put food in your mouth. So if I stopped eating at 9:20, I needed to wait until after 12:20 to eat. And the more time that passed with me doing that, the easier that got. It was very hard for me for the first couple of weeks, and I was always staring at the clock, waiting for that next time that I could eat. In that time frame, it started getting easier. I was able to stretch closer to that 4 hours, and I also learned about intermittent fasting. I did a ton of research from the Dr. Fung's website. I'll have to link his blog below. Dr. Jason Fung is a brilliant doctor who went through and explained the science behind intermittent fasting and how our hormones respond when we eat and how insulin can be impacted by how long we stretch our eating schedule, our eating windows. The longer that I stayed on Trim Healthy Mama switch to keto, I dabbled quite a bit into intermittent fasting, and I really enjoyed it. And as the time progressed, I got a little more lackadaisical with it. And I think the longest I would go through and do intermittent fasting was about a 16-hour window of non-eating to an 8-hour window of eating. I learned that for females that are in their reproductive stage of life, stretching your intermittent fasting that far is probably not the best and most supportive way to deal with your endocrine system. So for reproductive females, you shouldn't go longer than about 14 hours with intermittent fasting. And so whenever I read that, I got a lot more lackadaisical with the timing. But the long and the short of it was that stretching my eating windows out was vastly helpful to me. That is something that I naturally can do a little bit better nowadays, but there are plenty of times where I'm like, well, we had dinner at 6 and the big girls are down in bed and Jared and I want to have a snack, but it's only 8 o'clock. I should really wait till 9, but I really shouldn't eat after 9. But, you know, like I sit there and I play these games with myself, or I don't even bother playing the game with myself, and I will just go ahead and eat, even though it's only been 2 hours since the last like actual meal. And so that is going to be the focus that I'm going to just sort of like rest my mind on for this week. While continuing to get my greens, I'm going to focus very much so on every 3 hours or more having food, not sooner than that. Alrighty, the last thing I want to share with you before I let you go is about the scale. I normally start these things off with the scale, but I've decided to switch it up this year. I don't know. Keep it fresh. So last week I weighed in at 150.0 pounds, which to me felt awful because my body, I really think my ideal body weight is about 135 pounds. And that's for like my height, my actual physical stature and all those things. That's where my comfort zone is for my weight. Now, I know things look different after you have babies, so I'm not expecting like a certain physique post losing the weight, but anyway, long and the short of it, I've got 15 pounds until my personal goal weight. And so I stepped on the scale today and I weighed in at 149.4 pounds. So I lost 0.6, definitely a step in the right direction. So 0.6 pounds lost. I feel like really good with that. And I'm highly motivated with my my little bullet journal here. I did do a video on this, and the one thing I am really big on is just like do what works. And for me, just like daily lists really works along with the Ryder Carroll method. But I really wanted to have my health available And so having the little bar graph on there is really helpful to me. I haven't actually like colored it in, but having those little habits is also super helpful to me. But yes, that was my weight for this week. It's moving in the right direction, and it's moving at a pace that I think is sustainable for me. If I had lost a ton of weight this week, I would have been a little bit concerned because Lauren is still nursing, and she's not even 16 months old yet. And while I am starting to reach the end point for myself of willingness to continue on, I know she still needs to nurse. So if I would have lost that much weight, I would have been highly concerned for my milk supply. All of that aside, that's what I have for you this week. Keep getting your greens in first. Make sure that you stretch out your eating windows to that 3 to 4 hours if you are like me and used to be a like long throughout the day grazer instead of sitting down and having your actual meals. So I would love to know what basic principle of your way of eating, of your health and wellness quest you focused on last week and what you plan to focus on this coming week. And if you are new here, thank you so much for watching. I'm so glad you stumbled across this video, and I would love for you to poke around and see if there are other videos here that interest you, and if you would like to subscribe, I would love to have you. I thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all next time.